One of the challenges that I had as a Scrum Master was, where do you create the project documentation? Sometimes they said on a network drive, sometime on a Google Drive, sometime on a OneDrive. And so we have all these options, but what I think the best thing to do is actually create it on Confluence. And once we made that decision to create everything on Confluence, then Confluence became the source of reference. So in this video, I'll be showing you how you can leverage the Confluence by just creating another page called project documentation. And underneath that, you can put all that links to other documents which are sitting on SharePoint, Google Drive, whatever, and they can just reference everything from this one central location. So let's look at that, how we can arrange our project documentation using Confluence. So going back to the Confluence, we have all these pages already set up. You can see it's coming along very nicely. So now I want to create another page called project documentation. So from the top level, I want to create a page. And this time we're going to say it's a project documentation. And then here we just want to create various options to do that. So I can say the actual requirements document, is at Google Drive, so I can put here a link to the Google Drive, for example. Put the link here. That's one way of showing it. I can also insert a table to say this is just going to be, I'm just showing you different variations of how to set up a repository for all the documentation. So this could be just a number. So this is the document. And this is the link of that document. So for example, here's 1, 2. So this is the business requirements document. The link would be here. You can put the link in here, for example. So this is one option that you can put a bullet point, put a link there. You can create a table with the links to that thing. But what we preferred mostly, where we didn't have any documentation, was to create the documentation on the Confluence itself. To do that, you want to make sure that you have the title, for example, heading, and you say this is the, for example, the requirements document. Requirements. And here you'll start typing in all the requirements you need to have. So for example, screen 1, then you have screen 2, you can say backend, for example. And then you have another heading. This is the logical diagram. And you can put the diagram in here. And you can have another heading, for example, the test strategy. And you can put that here. Now the cool thing about this is that you can actually have at the top level here, if I take this off, I can insert a contents page. To do that, I just type in the word content, page content, report table, table of contents. Automatically it picks up all the heading 1 as a table of content, so that you can click on that instead of scrolling down and finding out. So if I was to add more here, for example, another heading here, and I type in the sprint management, sprint schedule, for example. So if I go back to table of content, it would add that as well. So this is a really good way of putting a table of content, putting every documentation on the Confluence itself, making sure they use heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and accordingly. So if I was to put here heading 2, so for example, I go here and I put heading 2, and I say current status. On the table of content, it will put that as a sub page of that. And if I was to put another and say, well, I want to put heading 3 now, and this time is current status and issues or the blockers, for example. So now if I look at that, it gives me a third. So you can see it really breaks it down the way it should be shown, and the table of content shows that. So if I was to publish this now, okay. So here we go, project documentation. Over here you got the actual table of content. So if I didn't want to scroll down to the bottom, but I'm interested in the blockers, I click on that, it takes me to the blockers. So it's a really good way of having all the documentation on the Confluence page using the table of content, or the way you want to do here, either bullet format or in a table format. But the best thing to do that I recommend is that you let the team build the documentation onto Confluence, and then using this table of content, it really makes it easy.